Part 2 of Rebel K's autobiography. To kind of talk about Sally a little bit. Her traumas were so deep-seated that she could never come out of them. She was always depressed. She had her good days. She did have good days. Full good days. Healthy days. But she had a lot of bad. And every boyfriend that she's been with had either assaulted her or beat her. Vern didn't beat her. Or they would abuse her. And a lot of time I would watch it. I remember one time, my stepdad, Billy, who is not with us anymore, when we were living in that housing development with the Freddie thing, I remember my mom, because it had woke me up, they were fighting. My mom worked 2 jobs. She was an RN, well, in-home caregiver. And I know this because I've went to a lot of her patients' houses with her because she felt she couldn't trust me to stay at home without getting into trouble or whatever. So she would go from one job to another. Her other job was working at the senior home on the beach side in Smyrna. So sometimes she would be coming home late hours because she would go from the beach side to that job to straight into her in-home care. You know, I watched her put people in the little lifts, you know, on their bed, lift them up, go to the bathroom. She did all of that. That woman was a hoss. She was a strong woman. She could deal with and handle a lot of stuff. But I remember this one night, you know, she had told me the next morning that she was fighting to stay awake. Kind of nodding at the wheel, trying to stay awake. And she said it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And of course the stores are not going to be open. That will come into play. But she made it home. And he said, "Where's my effing beer?" She said, "There's no stores open, Billy." And I was trying to fight to stay awake to get home from working 2 jobs. Or how she would put it, 2 shifts. And I was standing in my bedroom doorway. And I saw him on top of her. He was beating the shit out of her. And I mean this to the fullest extent. He was hitting her and beating her like a man. As he was straddled over her and I saw her legs, between his legs, you know, coming out the other side. And her legs kept jumping up and down. And her body kept jolting. And she wasn't moving for a while. I went in my room and closed the door and pulled the blanket over my head because it scared me so bad. And I locked my door because I was like, is he going to come in here and try to beat me too? But he didn't. That was just a really bad fear. No child should ever have to witness that. But he beat the shit out of her. And I knew he would always tell her, I do this because I love you. So the point being is when she got with my stepdad, Vern, she would always tell him that you don't love me because you don't beat me. If you loved me, you would beat me. That is not somebody trying to get attention. That is a deep-seated trauma that goes deep. So deep. When a woman gets to the point to where she feels that a man don't love her unless he's beating the crap out of her, that is not her fault for feeling that way. That is not her fault for thinking that way. That is how that woman feels. That woman didn't really see a lot of love, genuine love from people. She would get a lot of love from the family. But then it would be redacted with nasty things they would say. Pushing her. Verbally abusing her. Stealing money out of her purse. You know, whatever. Stealing some of her medications that she needed to get by. And then turn around and lie about it. This woman had more love and heart than 99% of the people I see on the face of this earth. She didn't know how to show it properly. She didn't know how to disperse it properly. And it carried on to where she even told me, I do this because I love you. It wasn't moral. It wasn't justified. But to her it was. I remember my stepdad. He's not even my stepdad. He started dating my mom and then telling all his friends I was his stepdaughter. And asked me, they were together, Vern wants to adopt you. I said no. And he said, why? I said, because I don't want you to be my dad. I feared that man. You know, that man, you know, you back in the 80s, you know, you get a spanking with a leather belt or you get to pick out a switch. Because I was growing up with Gen X elders. You know, 1, 2, maybe 3 SWAT, you know. Go to your room, you know. You're not trying to put as much force and blunt force down on that bottom as you possibly can. But he did. And he would tell me, if you put your hands in the way, I'm going to get them too. But I did. I kept them there. At a point, I had welts on my hands. They were all red. I had welts and blisters on my backside. I couldn't sit down for weeks. At least a week. If I would sit down, sometimes it would pop and I would hear it and feel it. And then my butt cheek would be bleeding through my pants or my shorts. And he would just look at me with his arms crossed and say, well, then I guess you'll think next time. Not thinking in my head that I could have said, no, Vern, that was abuse. You beat me. But I didn't know no better. You know, growing up, yeah, I could say, oh, they showed love and they showed affection. But I don't even know. I couldn't tell you if it was genuine or not. I could say it wasn't genuine. But maybe partially it was. Maybe it wasn't. I wasn't very good at being able to tell signs or, stuff like that. But he was into meth and coke and all that hard stuff really bad. Him and his brother, Bob. And it was crazy. I watched her get essayed on the couch, and of course, in hindsight, I didn't know what I was seeing. I saw a man on top of my mom, and she was up against the back of the couch, like he was behind her, but I didn't know. I wasn't grasping of what was actually happening, I guess you could say. And I've seen my sister, Juanita. Oh man, boy, did I see her go through some stuff that just traumatized the hell out of me. I can only imagine what it did to her. Mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Because it made a huge impact on her life. She went from dating Bobby first on her account, and then that didn't work out. They clashed. So she went to Glenn, which was his brother, maybe cousin. I'm not sure. But so yeah, that turned really bad, really quick. I mean, they were good together. I mean, they had good times, good moments, good, But he would come to be her biggest downfall. Would be to be getting with him. I remember one time she lived over on, I can't remember the name of it. Was it Highland Avenue? Yes. I believe. And they were both drinking, and he beat the shit out of her. He went and hid in the ditch while the cops were circling around looking for him. She was in the kitchen. She had slit her wrist. And she was laying there in her own blood. This woman has been going through this for so long. So many years. And they were good together, but they were toxic. It was like they couldn't drink together. Was a thing. And she laid up in the hospital. And she actually went into a coma one time. And she was in there. She was out for like a month or two. Maybe more. I'm pretty sure it was more. I'm pretty sure it was like 2 or 3 months. I'm not really sure. But I know she was unconscious for a while. And she was laid up in there for a while. And she would go through this all the time. All the time. Sometimes they would drink and they would have amazing nights where nothing would happen. Maybe they would argue a little bit, but nothing, no turmoil, like, bad stuff. But a lot of the time, it was bad. And they were toxic for each other. I remember one time I was laying on the couch. She was living on India Palm. And her and my mom went somewhere. And I was acting like I was sleeping, but I was actually literally just waking up. I don't know if I was is from the night before. I think it was from the night before. And I had my eyes closed, and he was touching me through my shorts. And when I heard my mom and my sister pull in, I jumped up and he jumped, and I ran out to the sliding glass door and I told her. And I remember she slammed him up against the sliding glass door and said, "If you ever touch my sister again, I'll fucking kill you." So. And then I was dating this guy, Shane, right? And we were dating for like, I don't know, a little over a year and a half. No. And I was really into him. Yes, I had love for him, of course. Um, we had so much fun together. We'd go to classic car meets and, stuff with him and his stepdad and his mom, his sister, and we used to always have fun together. And we would sit in his room, sometimes closed, sometimes open, whatever. We weren't in that lane, if you get me. He was I guess, what do you call a hick? But I would call a redneck because he would drive, so, well, he didn't have a vehicle at the time. Don't let me jump ahead. But, this one time I ate over his house and we had spaghetti. I remember that. I remember we had spaghetti. And, I remember he was like, "I'm going to drink this whole bottle of hot sauce." And everybody was like, "You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna, whatever." And he did. And he was in the bathroom for like an hour and a half screaming, "Oh, my ass, my ass." At somewhere along the line, he had went out. And I've never seen this man do any substances. And I wasn't smoking at that time. I think I started when I was 16 when I started smoking. And he said, "You want some?" I said, "No, I'm good." He was sitting on his little AC unit outside out back. And there was this powder smell. He was smoking it in a bowl, but there was like this powder smell. It smelled like baby powder. But anyways, that night he closed the door, turned up his radio, and he wasn't supposed to smoke cigarettes in his room, but he did. And then he put it out in his ashtray. And his stepdad was Biker Scott. He was a tattoo artist. Awesome man. That was an awesome man. From what I know. But he ripped my pants off that day, and he R&R'd me in there. And he put the pillow over my face. And I was kicking him in his junk. I was kicking him in his face. I was kicking him in his chest. He'd throw my legs down, and then he would lean up against them with his legs. And he had the pillow over my face, and I was frantically, flailing because I couldn't breathe. And then he went from that to putting his hat over my face. Then he put the pillow back over my face, and then I was hitting him, but he wasn't budging. And then when he got up, he's like, "Put your fucking clothes back on." And I did, and I ran out of the house. He came up behind me, and there was two girls coming down the road on bicycles, and he stopped them, and they were talking to him, and I said, "Don't talk to him, he just R&R'd me." And they looked at me and looked at him, and he said, "Don't believe her, don't listen to her, she's not telling the truth, that's a lie." I went to my sister's house down the street, and my sister frantically, she was very overprotective over me. And I was crying and shaking, and I told her, and my mom was standing there, and so I told him what happened, and she's like, "Oh my God." She picked up the phone, she said, "I gotta call the cops." And I remember Sally hanging up the phone and said, "No, you don't gotta call the cops. She's been with him for over a year. They probably did something and she got scared." I said, me. And she said, "No, he didn't. You just got scared." And of course, my mom and my sister got into a verbal argument that night. But my mom said it was bound to happen one way or another. And that broke me. That really, really broke me. You know, and before that occasion, before the R&R had happened, we were all jumping on a trampoline one day. It was me, Heather Kazaya, I think Kelly LaChaz, DJ Barong, him, and I think that was it. Anyways, we were all sitting around the trampoline, jumping on the trampoline, and he got this funny idea to straddle standing over me. After this situation had happened. But anyways, everybody was ranting to do a backflip, so I did a backflip. First backflip I've ever done in my life. And we were illegally on these people's trampoline when they weren't home. So it was like on us. And I landed wrong in my hair. I had fairly long hair, and my hair got caught up in the coils, wrapped in the coil. One of my arms was behind my head, one of my arms was behind my back, one of my legs was flipped up completely behind me, and the other one was bent, cockeyed. And I remember I was numb. I couldn't feel anything. My ribs were even numb. And my neck, it felt so stiff, and I couldn't move. And that's when everybody's like, "Are you okay?" You know. And he straddled over me, standing over me, and he just started jumping up and down, and they kept telling him to stop, 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 but he didn't. You know, at this time, he had actually tied my wrist to the trampoline springs, and then again continued jumping up and down. And, you know, everybody sat there, but nobody got up to do anything. Nobody tried to help me. You know, they all left and went home, and Heather, and, you know, she's like, "I'll come back after dinner and I'll help you home." Wow, what a good friend you are. You know, I like to go home and eat dinner too, but I gotta wait till you're done eating dinner to come and help me. I laid there for like 3 hours before, you know, it started to get dark and the sun was starting to go down, and I said, nobody's coming back for me. So it took me like 45 minutes, almost an hour, to crawl off the trampoline after getting my hair untangled by myself. And I kind of fell to the ground, and, you know, because it hurt. And my apartment was 3 apartments over, you know. I crawled there and laid up on my couch. My mom said, "You don't gotta go to the hospital. I'll call you out. You be laid up for a couple weeks. Till you heal and you'll be fine." So a lot of stuff would always get pushed under the carpet, hidden. Cops rarely called, unless it was a DV situation. And then one of the other family members would call or whatever. But that is the end of part 2. And we'll pick it up on next one of part 3. Thank you for tuning in.